I don't know how many of you might remember this case a couple of years ago. There were, I think it was 3 or 4 bankers who got into trouble in, I think it was America. I can't remember where exactly they got in trouble. But I think it was America, and it was very, I think, obvious at the time they needed to go to America to sort of, stand trial to say, you know, hey guys, we just need you to come to the witness stand trial. We need to find out what went wrong, or at least, we need to question you and find out what went wrong. And what happened then was the most hilarious moments in a PR tour I think I can even remember in history. And this is what at the moment we're getting from Michelle Maloney, by the way. But we'll get Malone, or should we say Baroness Malone. But this is what happened to these guys. They even went on TV and did TV interviews in orange prison jumpsuits. Like that's the lengths they went to go to. That they were about to be ripped away from their families because, something had gone wrong in America and, well, they needed to be answered. But they were doing this whole big apology tour. And that's the big point. I remember this. I can't even remember actually how it turned out. But when I saw this whole apology tour that not only the Baroness Malone herself, but even her husband are going on this apology tour, because two things are certain to happen. First of all, the COVID inquiry. One of its modules is going to be looking into all these PPE contracts. And that's going to come up quite soon. Not only that, but you are looking at an incoming Labour government who have specifically said, we are going to hold an inquiry into what happened with all these contracts. We're going to find out. We're going to see what happens. And we're going to see if there was any breaches in the law. So you've got this two very, very serious things coming up. And of course, when you think about missold sort of PPE contracts, who's the first person that comes to mind? And this is why you will probably be seeing her a lot, I highly suspect, in the news, in the media, doing essentially what I would call an apology tour. Saying, I did nothing wrong, while admitting she's going to profit from millions of pounds to the tune of these contracts. And trust me, we're going to get into what she said in a BBC interview she did with, I think it was, Laura Kuenssberg. Yes, she did an interview with Laura Kuenssberg. Kuenssberg. Kuenssberg, I think it's how you say it. But yeah, expect to see a lot of her. And more specifically, as you will see in this example here, and this photo and this interview, barely wearing any makeup. This is not how she normally looks. Like, this is not how she normally appears to herself. Even in Parliament, in other photos of when she's out and about, this is not how she normally appears. This is done on purpose. This is a manufactured appearance to make her look more sympathetic. And why? Because, well, I think they both know, well, they might be in a bit of trouble. And not just them, but a number of people who are also, shall we say, involved in these sort of BP contracts, this VIP fast lane. Again, questions should be asked and answered about this. The COVID inquiry is going to talk about this quite a lot. And by the time that potential module comes round, there could have been a general election. There could be a different government, a government that has openly said, we are going to investigate this. We are going to have a look into what went wrong here. So is it any surprise that all of a sudden, 3 years after all this happened, because you'd think after these, initial allegations came out, maybe you might want to address these, pardon me, maybe you want to address these allegations, maybe right off the bat. But no, it's been 3 years before I think even both of them have even actually said anything. So let's get into some of what was said in this interview, because I think it's very illuminating and it's very obvious what is going on here. That this is just potentially the beginning of an apology tour to, well, try and garner some public sympathy, or at least maybe get the public to, stop talking about it because they sort of want to, shall we say, we downplay the fact that, the COVID inquiry is going to talk about this. And of course, Labour's talked about this as well, doing an inquiry about this. What happened here? Again, I wonder why all of a sudden we're going to go on an apology tour. But anyway, before we do go over some of this interview, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and an affiliation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me a coffee. And of course, as always, there is the Pony Club down below. There's the YouTube thank you button, all that stuff down below. So let's crack on into this. This was an interview they did, as they said, on the BBC with Laura Kuenssberg. Kuenssberg, or whatever. The interview they did with Laura. So, in an interview with the BBC, the couple apologized for denying their role in a deal for more than 3 years. But a defiant Baroness Mone said, I don't honestly see that there is a case to answer. I cannot see we have done wrong. The PPE MedPro was awarded government contracts worth more than over £200 million to supply PPE to the NHS during the pandemic through a so-called VIP lane, introduced to help the government choose between huge numbers of supplier offers. In November of 2021, the government revealed that Baroness Monroe was the source of referral for PPE MedPro, getting a place in this VIP lane. Millions of gowns that the company supplied were never used, but the couple say that they were supplied in accordance with the contract. The PPE MedPro is being sued by the UK government for over £122 million plus costs for breach of contract and unjust enrichment. So again, gee, wonder why they're going on this apology tour. Having previously denied gaining directly from these contracts, which yield profits of over £60 million, the former Conservative peer and lingerie tycoon admits that she and her children were beneficiaries of financial trusts where the money is held. Maybe you should give that money back. Just an idea, She told the BBC that her life had been destroyed by these allegations about the PPE profits, even though the quote, we've only done one thing, which was lie to the press to say that we weren't involved. Then what? Why did you lie to the press to begin with? She said this was not a crime and added, no one deserves this. Really? Then why is the UK government suing them for breach of contract and unjust enrichment? And maybe, as we said, when the COVID inquiry gets around to this module, when we get a Labour government in charge that's going to look into this, which they absolutely should, maybe, this is where we might see, well, maybe this does go to the courts. Maybe, the UK prosecutors maybe go, maybe there was, a crime committed here. And maybe it's not just, um, you know, Baroness Monroe here. Maybe it's a lot of people that were involved in these VIP lanes, because there's still a lot of questions that have not been answered around these VIP lanes, still to this day. So, Mr. Barrowman and the Baroness Monroe said this was always going to benefit, and my family will benefit in due course. Her family benefit, my family benefit. That's what you do when you are in a privileged position of making money, he said. But Baroness Monroe insisted that neither she or her children had yet seen a penny of the money, and that this is being held in the trust. Nor had the couple used the proceeds of the deal to buy a yacht, she said. She also suggested that she would not benefit if, quote, God forbid, we get divorced after this show. Um, mm, yeah, I think there's still a lot of questions to be answered, honestly, on this. And luckily, the BBC did confirm they had been under investigation by the National Crime Agency, ongoing for 2.5 years, and said that they had both only been interviewed once. They also confirmed that the investigation was into conspiracy to defraud, fraud by false representation, and bribery. So there is an investigation currently ongoing. That is something that also has come out. The National Crime Agency are looking into this. Barris Monroe said, I should have said that I am involved straight away, but I didn't want the press intrusion for my family. My family have gone through hell with the media over my career, and I didn't want another big boo-ha. No, no point, bear in mind, during this coverage, have I really seen her family brought up in this. It's always been pretty much her, and of course, the picture of that yacht. That's really the only one I've seen on this. Um, I'm sure the people will correct me if I'm wrong. So Barros Moreau and Mr. Barrowman told the BBC that they were, quote, upfront, straight up people. You apologized for not telling the truth at the start, saying that we just both regret that we didn't. Again, why didn't you? why didn't you sort of do this? It doesn't make any sense that you lied to begin with. Then it goes on down further. So she told the Sunday with Laura Kuenssberg that that the cabinet officials had told her that she only had to declare her interest to them, not the House of Lords. She said, I discussed it with the Cabinet Office that you do not declare your interest in the House of Lords if you are not a director. You're not a shareholder. You're not financially benefiting. Again, big, big, big reason why we need to reform the House of Lords. You know, this is I keep on saying this. The House of Lords really, really, really bad. We need to really reform it. I would hope that it is we do make this sort of a priority. Um, you know, but I do understand, why people want to sort of, go after Westminster first, but I think maybe we should go after the House of Lords first. Instead, I think that's a much bigger and honestly, I think a far easier target as well. But she said there. So Baroness Moreau also claimed an official suggested that she just declare your interest to us. That's exactly what I did, she said. I did everything they asked me to do. Mr. Barrowman said the Cabinet Office clearly felt that there was a perceived conflict because you have an unusual situation of husband and wife team being together. He told the BBC that the PPE MedPro had agreed to contracts to the value of over £202 million, making a 30% profit of around £60 million, which he described as a good return. Yeah, a good return during the pandemic. Mr. Barrowman said that there had been, quote, no guarantee that PPE MedPro would be paid until the masks and gowns had supplied. He added that the risks were about absolutely extraordinary. He denied that the deal was profiteering, saying that it presented very competitive prices for the taxpayer. The Department of Health launched its claim against PPE MedPro, which is a separate to the criminal investigation being carried out by the National Crime Agency a year ago. So yeah. Again, I wonder why there's an apology tour going on. We'll see how this happens. But not only do you have, of course, those investigations going on, as we've said, the COVID inquiry also probably going to look into these as well. Although, like I say, we're not at that module yet. I think that's like I say, technically we're on like module 2. And I think that, if I remember correctly, it's module 5. I want to say it might not be. It might even be 6. Again, I know that that it is in one of the things they want to do. So it's going to be a while before we get there. But as we say, what's happening with the sort of the COVID inquiry is that they are sort of going it through module by module, and then there's being a report issued on that particular module, and then we'll go like that until we sort of get to the end, and then of course we get the full sort of the full document, shall we say, in that. So, like I say, I think we're going to see a lot of Michelle in the coming weeks and months saying, on an apology tour, I did nothing wrong. I do not deserve this. No, it was the Cabinet Office telling me what I should have done. And then it's like, well, maybe you should have just been honest and upfront that, you were involved. Can't help but think that might have been a bit more, honesty and transparency. Also, of course, rules around House of Lords as well. But again, I think we should just completely reform the House of Lords, turn it into sort of, some sort of, regional sort of area assemblies. I've said before, you split the UK up all into regions, you do it by PR, sort of, example, maybe you have like 5 people in Yorkshire, so maybe that would end up like 3 Labour, maybe 1 Conservative, maybe 1 sort of UKIP, bearing off sort of voter sort of intentions, how we're at. I think that's roughly it. I think again, don't quote me on that. That's just top of my head idea, but I think that would be the sort of the way to go. I think that's the way to do it. But yeah, so as always, thank you very much, of course, for watching. Let me know what you think down below. Do you think this is sort of sincere apology tour, or do you think well, shall we say the gig's up? Shall we say? But of course, as always, thank you very much for watching, and of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.